It's the morning of my wedding day, standing in a shimmering white gown, heart racing, ready to say, I do, to the man I thought was my forever. The mirror reflects my smile, but my hands tremble as I overhear a phone call that shatters everything. My fiancé, Ryan, is whispering to his mother, she's got nothing, Mom. After the wedding, we'll control it all. My stomach drops. The man I love, the man I trusted, isn't who I thought he was. And his family? They've been mocking me for months, calling me a nobody, a gold digger who lucked out by snagging their golden boy. But here's the thing, they don't know my secret. A secret so big, it's about to turn their world upside down. I'm Emily, a 28-year-old from Seattle, and I've been carrying a truth I haven't told a soul, not even Ryan. My grandmother left me 3 apartments in the heart of the city, worth millions. I kept it hidden, not out of shame, but because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I own. But that phone call? It lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to let Ryan and his family play me for a fool. So, I made a plan to deliver a sweet, unforgettable revenge that would leave them speechless and teach them a lesson they'd never forget. What happens next is a roller coaster you won't believe. From a jaw-dropping confrontation to a moment that had everyone in the room gasping, this story is packed with twists, heartbreak, and triumph. Stick with me until the end, because I'm going to reveal how I turned betrayal into empowerment and walked away stronger than ever. You don't want to miss the moment I dropped the bombshell that changed everything. Trust me, it's worth it. So, let's dive into the day I said I do to myself, and thank God I kept my secret. Let me take you back a bit, before that gut-punching phone call turned my wedding day into a battlefield. My name's Emily Carter, a 28-year-old born and raised in the rainy, coffee-scented streets of Seattle. I'm the kind of person who finds joy in small things, sipping a latte at Pike Place Market, sketching the skyline from Cary Park, or humming along to jazz at a local bar. But if you asked my fiancé's family, they'd tell you I'm just a nobody, a girl who got lucky by catching Ryan Mitchell's eye. And that's where this story really begins. I met Ryan 2 years ago at a tech conference downtown. He was charming, ambitious, a rising star at a Seattle startup, with a smile that could light up the Space Needle. We clicked instantly, bonding over late-night tacos and dreams of building a life together. I fell hard, picturing a future filled with love and laughter. But there was one thing I never told him, or anyone else, for that matter. My grandmother, Eleanor, who raised me after my parents passed, left me 3 apartments in the heart of Seattle when she died 5 years ago. These aren't just any apartments, they're prime real estate, worth over $5 million. I kept it a secret, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to be loved for me, not my bank account. Grandma always said, money shows who people really are. And boy, was she right. Ryan's family, the Mitchells, never warmed to me. His mother, Patricia, a real estate agent with a fake smile and sharper tongue, made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for her golden boy. At our first family dinner in their fancy Bellevue mansion, she sized me up like I was a used car. So, Emily, what do you do? She asked, her voice dripping with condescension. I told her I was a freelance graphic designer, scraping by but happy. She smirked and said, how quaint. Ryan's used to a certain lifestyle, you know. The table laughed, and I felt my cheeks burn. Ryan just shrugged, like it was no big deal. That night, I cried in my tiny Capitol Hill apartment, wondering if I'd ever fit in. It didn't stop there. Over the next year, Patricia's jabs grew bolder. At a Christmas party, she joked that I must be after Ryan's money, since I clearly had none of my own. His sister, Lauren, chimed in, calling me the charity case Ryan's too kind to ditch. Each time, Ryan brushed it off, saying, they'll come around. But they never did. I started to feel like an outsider in my own love story, shrinking under their judgment. The worst part? I began to doubt myself, wondering if I really was the nobody they saw, but deep down, I knew my worth. Those apartments, tucked away in my name, were my safety net, my grandmother's legacy. I didn't need the Mitchells' approval, but I wanted Ryan's love. So, I stayed quiet, hoping things would change. That is, until that phone call on my wedding day blew the lid off everything. Their words, Ryan's words, cut deeper than any of Patricia's insults. They thought I was nothing, a pawn in their game. But they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The air in my bridal suite felt suffocating, the scent of roses and hairspray now bitter in my nose. I stood frozen, my white gown brushing the floor, as Ryan's voice slithered through the cracked door. "She's got nothing, Mom," he said, his tone cold, calculating. "Once we're married, we'll push her to sign the papers. The house, the investments, it'll all be ours." Patricia's laugh, sharp as broken glass, followed. "Good. She's so naive, thinking you love her for her charm." My heart slammed against my ribs, each word a dagger twisting deeper. The man I was about to marry, the man I'd shared my dreams with over midnight coffee runs in Seattle's foggy streets, was a liar. And his mother? She was the puppet master, pulling his strings all along. I pressed my back against the wall, hands trembling, trying to make sense of it all. I'd spent 2 years loving Ryan, ignoring his family's snide remarks, believing he saw me, really saw me. But this? This was betrayal on a level I couldn't fathom. My mind raced back to every moment I doubted myself, the family dinners where Patricia called me a gold digger, the Christmas party where Lauren sneered that I was beneath them. Ryan had always waved it off, his easy smile convincing me they'd come around. Now, I saw the truth. He wasn't defending me. He was playing me, banking on my so-called nothingness to secure his family's control. The worst part? They had no idea about the 3 apartments I'd inherited from Grandma Eleanor, tucked away in Seattle's priciest zip codes, worth millions. I'd kept that secret to protect my heart, but now it was my weapon. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away. I wasn't the naive girl they thought I was. Grandma's voice echoed in my head, "Money shows who people really are." She'd been right. Ryan and his family had shown their true colors, and I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. My hands stopped shaking, replaced by a fire I hadn't felt in years. I straightened, my reflection in the mirror no longer a nervous bride but a woman ready to fight. I wasn't going to run crying or confront Ryan in a messy scene. No, I had a better plan, a plan to turn their greed against them, to expose their lies in a way they'd never forget. This wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming my worth, proving to myself that I didn't need their approval or their love. I slipped my phone from my purse, my fingers steady as I opened the voice recorder. If Ryan and Patricia thought they could scheme behind my back, they were about to learn I was one step ahead. The wedding was still hours away, and I had time to prepare. My secret, those 3 apartments, wasn't just a safety net anymore, it was the key to my freedom. I took a deep breath, the Seattle skyline visible through the window, its lights glinting like a promise. This was my city, my story, and I was done playing small. They wanted to underestimate me? Fine. But by the end of this day, they'd know exactly who Emily Carter was. The Seattle skyline shimmered outside my bridal suite window, but inside, my world was a storm. Ryan's betrayal, those cold words about controlling me after the wedding, burned in my chest like a wildfire. I could have stormed out, thrown his ring in his face, and called off the whole circus. But I'm Emily Carter, and I don't crumble that easily. If Ryan and his mother, Patricia, thought they could play me like a pawn, I was about to flip the board. I needed to know the truth, not just what Ryan said behind closed doors, but how far he'd go when the stakes were real. So, I hatched a plan to test his loyalty, to see if the man I loved was worth my heart or just another snake in a suit. I wiped the tears from my cheeks, steadied my breath, and walked out to find Ryan in the hotel lobby, all charm and smiles as he chatted with guests. My stomach churned, but I plastered on a nervous look, the kind he'd expect from a stressed-out bride. "Ryan," I said, my voice shaky, "I need to tell you something. I'm in trouble. I've got some debts piling up from my design work, and I don't have any savings to cover them. I'm scared we'll start our marriage in the red." I watched his face closely, searching for the man I thought I knew. His smile faltered, just for a split second, before he pulled me into a hug. "Don't worry, babe," he said, his voice smooth as ever. "We'll figure it out." But his eyes, they were distant, calculating, like he was already rewriting his script. That evening, I overheard him on the phone again, this time in the hotel garden, his voice low and urgent. "She's broke, Mom. Debts? Are you kidding me? We can't deal with that." Patricia's voice crackled through the speaker. "Then cut her loose, Ryan. Tell her it's off before the vows. We don't need a liability." My heart sank, but my resolve hardened. I slipped my phone out, hitting record, capturing every damning word. Ryan didn't love me. He loved the idea of a wife he could control, one who'd owe him everything. And Patricia? She was the architect of this charade, orchestrating it all to protect their precious Mitchell legacy. The next morning, I pushed the test further. At the rehearsal brunch, I pulled Patricia aside, feigning panic. I told Ryan about my debts, I whispered, and I'm worried he's having second thoughts. I don't even own my apartment, it's rented. I have nothing to bring to this marriage. Her face twisted into a smug grin, barely hidden behind a sip of mimosa. Oh, Emily, don't be so hard on yourself, she said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. But you know, marriage is a big commitment. Maybe you two should reconsider. That was it, the final nail in their coffin. They didn't just underestimate me, they saw me as disposable. I walked away, my heart heavy but my mind clear. The wedding was tomorrow, and I had everything I needed, the recordings, the truth, and a fire inside me that no one could extinguish. Ryan and Patricia thought they'd outsmarted me, but they were about to learn what happens when you bet against Emily Carter. My grandmother's apartments, my secret worth millions, weren't just my safety net, they were my checkmate. This wasn't over yet, the Seattle skyline shimmered outside my bridal suite window, but inside, my world was a storm. Ryan's betrayal, those cold words about controlling me after the wedding, burned in my chest like a wildfire. I could have stormed out, thrown his ring in his face, and called off the whole circus. But I'm Emily Carter, and I don't crumble that easily. If Ryan and his mother, Patricia, thought they could play me like a pawn, I was about to flip the board. I needed to know the truth, not just what Ryan said behind closed doors, but how far he'd go when the stakes were real. So, I hatched a plan to test his loyalty, to see if the man I loved was worth my heart or just another snake in a suit. I wiped the tears from my cheeks, steadied my breath, and walked out to find Ryan in the hotel lobby, all charm and smiles as he chatted with guests. My stomach churned, but I plastered on a nervous look, the kind he'd expect from a stressed-out bride. Ryan, I said, my voice shaky, I need to tell you something. I'm in trouble. I've got some debts piling up from my design work, and I don't have any savings to cover them. I'm scared we'll start our marriage in the red. I watched his face closely, searching for the man I thought I knew. His smile faltered, just for a split second, before he pulled me into a hug. Don't worry, babe, he said, his voice smooth as ever. We'll figure it out. But his eyes, they were distant, calculating, like he was already rewriting his script. That evening, I overheard him on the phone again, this time in the hotel garden, his voice low and urgent. She's broke, Mom. Debts? Are you kidding me? We can't deal with that. Patricia's voice crackled through the speaker. Then cut her loose, Ryan. Tell her it's off before the vows. We don't need a liability. My heart sank, but my resolve hardened. I slipped my phone out, hitting record, capturing every damning word. Ryan didn't love me. He loved the idea of a wife he could control, one who'd owe him everything. And Patricia? She was the architect of this charade, orchestrating it all to protect their precious Mitchell legacy. The next morning, I pushed the test further. At the rehearsal brunch, I pulled Patricia aside, feigning panic. I told Ryan about my debts, I whispered, and I'm worried he's having second thoughts. I don't even own my apartment, it's rented. I have nothing to bring to this marriage. Her face twisted into a smug grin, barely hidden behind a sip of mimosa. Oh, Emily, don't be so hard on yourself, she said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. But you know, marriage is a big commitment. Maybe you two should reconsider. That was it, the final nail in their coffin. They didn't just underestimate me, they saw me as disposable. I walked away, my heart heavy but my mind clear. The wedding was tomorrow, and I had everything I needed, the recordings, the truth, and a fire inside me that no one could extinguish. Ryan and Patricia thought they'd outsmarted me, but they were about to learn what happens when you bet against Emily Carter. My grandmother's apartments, my secret worth millions, weren't just my safety net, they were my checkmate. This wasn't over yet, the weight of Ryan's betrayal clung to me like Seattle's morning fog, but I wasn't about to let it drown me. I had the recordings, Ryan's cold scheming, Patricia's venomous orders to cut me loose, safely tucked away on my phone. Those words were my ammunition, but I needed more than a smoking gun to win this war. I needed a plan, one that would not only expose their lies but also reclaim my power in a way they'd never forget. The wedding was less than 24 hours away, and every second counted. I wasn't just Emily Carter, the naive bride they mocked. I was the granddaughter of Eleanor Carter, a woman who taught me to stand tall and fight smart. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I slipped out of the hotel, the Seattle skyline glowing under a drizzly sky, and headed to my sister Sarah's apartment in Fremont. Sarah was my rock, the one person who knew about the 3 apartments Grandma left me, prime properties in Belltown. Worth over $5 million. I'd kept them secret, renting them out quietly to build my own future, because Grandma always said, "Your worth isn't in what you show, but what you know." Now, that secret was my ace. I sat Sarah down, my voice steady but my heart racing, and played her the recordings. Her jaw dropped, her eyes flashing with anger. "They thought they could use you," she said, slamming her coffee mug on the table. "Emily, you've got to burn this to the ground." Sarah didn't mean chaos, she meant justice. And with her by my side, I felt unstoppable. First, I needed legal muscle. I called my grandmother's old lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a no-nonsense seatlight who'd handled her estate. Over a crackling phone line, I explained everything: Ryan's plan to manipulate me, Patricia's greed, and my secret apartments. "I need to protect myself," I told him, "and I need to make sure they can't touch what's mine." Thompson was all business, promising to draft an ironclad prenup by morning, one that would lock Ryan out of my assets if he tried anything shady. He also suggested I get the apartment deeds ready, proof of my ownership, to drop at the perfect moment. I could hear the smirk in his voice when he said, "This is going to be one hell of a wedding, Miss Carter." Next, I dug into logistics. I met with my best friend, Mia, a tech whiz who worked at a startup near Pike Place Market. Over fish and chips, I asked her to help me set up a discreet audio system for the wedding reception. "I want those recordings to play loud and clear," I said, my hand steady now. Mia grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Oh, we're going to make them wish they never met you," she said, already sketching a plan to sync my phone to the venue speakers. Every step felt like stacking bricks in a fortress, each one stronger than the last, but late that night, alone in my Capitol Hill apartment, doubt crept in. What if I was going too far? What if I lost more than just Ryan, my dignity, my peace? I stared at a photo of Grandma Eleanor, her kind eyes steady and sure. I remembered her words, "Never let anyone dim your light, Emily." That snapped me out of it. This wasn't about revenge for spite. It was about standing up for myself, proving I was more than the nobody they saw. I pulled out my laptop, reviewed the deeds, and rehearsed my speech for the reception. The fire in me burned brighter than ever. By dawn, I was ready. The prenup was signed, the recordings were cued, and my heart was set. Ryan and Patricia thought they'd outsmarted me, but they were walking into my trap. The wedding wasn't just a ceremony anymore, it was my stage. And I was about to show them what Emily Carter was made of. The ballroom at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel glowed under chandeliers, a sea of white roses and champagne flutes sparkling in the Seattle twilight. I stood at the center, my wedding gown shimmering, but my heart wasn't racing with love, it was pounding with purpose. The guests, draped in suits and sequins, clinked glasses, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. Ryan sat at the head table, his charming smile as fake as the vows he'd just spoken. Patricia, his mother, adjusted her pearl necklace, her smug grin practically screaming she'd won. They thought they had me cornered, a broke bride they could mold into their puppet. But they were wrong. This wasn't their game anymore. It was mine. I took the microphone, my hand steady, and tapped it gently. The room hushed, eyes turning to me. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice clear, cutting through the chatter like a knife. "Today isn't just about love. It's about truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but I kept going. "I have a story to share, one I've kept hidden until now." I glanced at Ryan, his brow furrowing, then at Patricia, her grin fading. My sister Sarah, standing near the back, gave me a nod, her eyes fierce with pride. Mia, my tech-savvy friend, was ready at the soundboard, her finger hovering over the play button. "Many of you know I'm a simple graphic designer," I said, pausing for effect. "But what you don't know is that my grandmother, Eleanor Carter, left me a legacy. 3 apartments in Belltown, worth $5 million. The room gasped, glasses clinking as people leaned forward. Ryan's face drained of color, his fork frozen midair. Patricia choked on her wine, her eyes bulging. I pressed on, my voice rising. I kept it secret because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I own. But some people, I locked eyes with Ryan, saw me as nothing, a nobody to control. I nodded to Mia, and the speakers crackled to life. Ryan's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. She's got nothing, Mom. We'll push her to sign the papers. Then Patricia's venom, cut her loose, Ryan. We don't need a liability. The guests froze, jaws dropping, as the recordings played on, exposing their plot to manipulate me. Ryan bolted upright, stammering, "That's not, Emily, you misunderstood." But the crowd was already whispering, heads shaking in disgust. Patricia tried to stand, her face crimson, but her heels caught on her dress, and she sank back, humiliated. I held up the prenup, signed that morning, my lawyers. Words echoing in my mind, ironclad. "This protects my legacy," I said, my voice unwavering. "And it ensures no one can take what's mine." I turned to Ryan, my gaze steady. "You thought you could play me, but you played yourself." The room erupted in applause, Sarah and Mia cheering loudest, their voices cutting through the chaos. Guests pulled out phones, recording the moment, whispers of, "She's a queen," rippling through the crowd. I stepped back, the weight of 2 years of doubt lifting from my shoulders. The Seattle skyline glittered through the ballroom windows, a reminder of who I was, a woman forged by love, loss, and a grandmother's wisdom. This wasn't just revenge. It was redemption. Ryan and Patricia sat silent, exposed, their empire of lies crumbling. The wedding wasn't over, but their game was. And I was just getting started. The ballroom's chandeliers cast a golden glow, but the air was thick with tension, the echoes of Ryan's and Patricia's recorded voices still ringing in everyone's ears. The guests at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel stood frozen, their whispers buzzing like static, phones still raised to capture the wreckage of the Mitchells' lies. I, Emily Carter, stood tall in my wedding gown, the microphone still warm in my hand. My heart no longer heavy but light, freed by the truth I'd just unleashed. Ryan's face was a mask of panic, his eyes darting as if searching for an escape. Patricia gripped the table, her knuckles white, her empire of manipulation crumbling under the weight of her own words. The crowd's applause, led by my sister Sarah and friend Mia, roared like a wave, but I wasn't done. This wasn't just about exposing them. It was about choosing myself. I turned to Ryan, his stammered excuses fading into the noise. "Emily, please, let me explain," he pleaded, his voice cracking, but I raised a hand to silence him. The room held its breath. "There's nothing left to say, Ryan," I said, my voice steady, slicing through the chaos. "You didn't love me. You loved the idea of controlling me." I slipped the engagement ring off my finger, its diamond catching the light one last time, and placed it on the table. "This marriage is over." Gasps rippled through the guests, but Sarah's proud nod and Mia's fist pump from the back fueled my resolve. I wasn't the naive bride they'd mocked. I was a woman who knew her worth, forged by my grandmother's legacy and my own grit. I faced the crowd, my gown rustling as I stepped forward. "Today, I'm not just walking away from a lie," I said, my words clear and strong. "I'm walking toward my truth. I don't need anyone to define me, not a ring, not a name, not a bank account." The applause surged again, louder, with women in the crowd cheering and men nodding in respect. I caught sight of the Seattle skyline through the ballroom windows, its lights twinkling like stars, a reminder of the city that raised me and the strength I carried within. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about liberation. I turned and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking on the polished floor, each step a declaration of freedom. Ryan called after me, his voice desperate, but it was drowned out by the crowd's murmurs and the pounding of my own pulse. Patricia tried to follow, her heels wobbling, but a guest stepped in her path, shaking their head in disgust. Outside, the cool Seattle night greeted me, the Space Needle glowing in the distance. I took a deep breath, the drizzle kissing my face, and felt alive, truly alive, for the first time in years. Sarah and Mia caught up, wrapping me in a hug, their laughter mixing with the city's hum. "You're a freaking legend," Mia said, her eyes shining. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Grandma would be so proud." I looked back at the hotel, its lights fading as I stepped into the street. The weight of 2 years of doubt, of Patricia's sneers and Ryan's betrayal, was gone. I didn't need their approval or their love. I had my apartments, my legacy, my family, Sarah, Mia, and the memory of Grandma Eleanor. Most importantly, I had myself. The wedding was over, but my story was just beginning. I walked into the night, the Seattle skyline my witness, ready to build a life on my own terms, the Seattle night wrapped around me like a soft blanket, the drizzle shimmering under streetlights as I stepped away from the chaos of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. My wedding gown trailed behind me, no longer a symbol of a broken promise but a badge of my courage. I'd just walked away from Ryan, his lies, and his mother Patricia's venom, leaving their world in shambles. The Space Needle glowed in the distance, a quiet witness to my rebirth. But I wasn't alone. Behind me, my sister Sarah and my best friend Mia jogged to catch up, their laughter cutting through the city's hum. Their arms encircled me in a hug, and for the first time in months, I felt whole, not because I'd won, but because I had people who saw me for me. Sarah's apartment in Fremont became our sanctuary that night. The cozy space, cluttered with her art supplies and vinyl records, smelled of lavender candles and fresh coffee. We kicked off our shoes, my gown swapped for sweatpants, and sprawled on her couch. Sarah, her eyes still blazing with pride, raised a glass of cheap wine. To Emily, she said, her voice thick with emotion, the baddest woman in Seattle. Mia, ever the spark, clinked her glass and added, and to the look on Ryan's face when you dropped that bombshell. We burst into laughter, the kind that shakes your whole body and heals your soul. It wasn't just about the victory over Ryan's betrayal. It was about the people who stood by me, who reminded me I was never the nobody Patricia called me. Mia pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media posts from the wedding guests. Clips of my speech were already spreading, with hashtags like hashtag Seattle Queen and hashtag Truth Wins. Girl, you're going viral, she said, grinning. Strangers were commenting, calling me an inspiration, sharing their own stories of standing up to betrayal. One woman wrote, "You gave me the courage to leave my toxic job." Another said, "Thank you for reminding me my worth isn't tied to anyone else." I blinked back tears, not of sadness but of gratitude. My story, born from pain, was touching lives beyond that ballroom, proving that truth has a ripple effect. Sarah squeezed my hand, her voice soft. "Grandma Eleanor would have loved this," she said. "She always said you were her fighter." I smiled, picturing Grandma's warm eyes, her lessons about strength and love. Those 3 apartments in Belltown, her legacy, weren't just bricks and mortar. They were her way of ensuring I'd always have a choice, a way out. And tonight, I'd chosen myself. But more than that, I'd chosen the family that mattered, Sarah, Mia, and the friends who texted me all night, checking in, offering love. They were my real wealth, far more valuable than any property. As the night stretched on, we talked about the future. Sarah suggested I take a trip, maybe to the San Juan Islands, to clear my head. Mia, ever practical, proposed I meet with a financial advisor to manage my apartments wisely. Their ideas, their belief in me, felt like sunlight after a storm. I looked out Sarah's window, the Seattle skyline a mosaic of possibility. Ryan and Patricia were a fading shadow, their lies no match for the love surrounding me. This wasn't the end of my story, it was a new chapter, one I'd write on my terms, with people who'd never let me doubt my light. And as the city hummed below, I knew I was home, not just in Seattle, but in myself. As the Seattle dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds, I stood on Sarah's balcony, the city stretching out before me like a canvas of new beginnings. The events of the night, walking away from Ryan, exposing his and Patricia's lies, and feeling the embrace of my true family, still hummed in my veins. My wedding gown was folded away, replaced by a cozy sweater, but the strength I'd found in that ballroom felt like armor I'd wear forever. This wasn't just a story about a wedding gone wrong. It was a story about discovering who I am, about learning that my worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. And now, I want to share that truth with you, because if my journey can light even one spark in your heart, then every tear, every doubt, was worth it. Looking back, I realized the real victory wasn't dropping the bombshell about my grandmother's 3 apartments, though I'll admit that felt pretty darn good. It wasn't even watching Ryan and Patricia squirm under the weight of their own deceit. The victory was choosing myself, standing up when every fiber of my being wanted to shrink. For 2 years, I let their words, gold digger, nobody, charity case, chip away at my confidence. But in that moment, in front of a ballroom full of strangers and friends, I reclaimed my voice. And that's what I want you to take away from this. Your value doesn't come from what others think of you, or what you own, or the boxes they try to put you in. It comes from the fire inside you, the one that keeps burning even when the world tries to snuff it out. Here's the lesson I've learned, and I hope you'll carry it with you. In life, you'll meet people who try to dim your light, maybe a partner, a boss, or even family. They'll judge you, underestimate you, or try to mold you into something you're not. Don't let them. Stand firm in who you are, even when it's scary, even when it means walking away from what feels safe. In relationships, choose people who see your heart, not your wallet or your status. Surround yourself with those who lift you up, like my sister Sarah and my friend Mia, who reminded me I was enough. And when you face betrayal, don't let it define you. Use it as fuel to build a life that's yours, one where you call the shots. This isn't about revenge, though I'll be honest, there's a sweetness in proving people wrong. It's about redemption, about rewriting your story on your terms. For me, that meant protecting my grandmother's legacy, those apartments in Belltown, and honoring her belief in me. It meant walking away from a lie to build a future rooted in truth. You have that power too. Maybe it's leaving a toxic job, setting boundaries with a friend, or chasing a dream others call foolish. Whatever it is, trust yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone but you. As I watched the Seattle skyline wake up, the Space Needle standing tall against the clouds, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. My story didn't end in that ballroom. It's still unfolding, and so is yours. So, take this with you, you are enough, just as you are. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Hold your head high, protect your heart, and build a life that makes you proud. Because when you do, you'll find that the only approval you need is your own. The Seattle morning unfolded like a promise, the sun breaking through the clouds to bathe the city in a golden haze. I stood on Sarah's balcony, a mug of coffee, warming my hands, the skyline stretching out before me, a tapestry of glass, steel, and dreams. The Space Needle stood proud, a beacon of resilience, much like the strength I'd found within myself. Just hours ago, I'd walked away from a wedding that could have trapped me, exposed Ryan and Patricia's lies, and reclaimed my truth in a ballroom that roared with applause. Those 3 apartments in Belltown, my grandmother's legacy, weren't just my safety net, they were my declaration that I'd never let anyone define my worth. But this story, my story, isn't just about me. It's about you, too, and the power you hold to rewrite your own ending. As I sipped my coffee, the city's hum filled me with a quiet joy. I thought of Grandma Eleanor, her voice steady in my memory. Your heart is your compass, Emily. She taught me to trust myself, to stand tall even when the world tried to pull me down. And now, I want to pass that compass to you. Life will throw curveballs, betrayals, doubts, people who try to dim your shine. Maybe you've felt like I did, shrinking under someone's judgment, wondering if you're enough. Let me tell you, you are. You're enough just as you are, and no one gets to take that from you. My journey, from a bride betrayed to a woman reborn, is proof that you can rise above the noise and build a life that's yours, surrounded by people who see your light. But I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose yourself? Maybe you walked away from a toxic relationship, stood up to a bully, or chased a dream others called crazy. Drop your story in the comments below. I'm reading every single one. Your voice matters, and sharing it could inspire someone else to find their courage. Hit that like button if this story sparked something in you, and share this video with a friend who needs a reminder of their strength. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, because we're building a community here, one where we lift each other up and celebrate our truths. As I stepped back inside, Sarah was blasting her favorite jazz record, and Mia was already planning a celebratory brunch at Pike Place Market. Their laughter, their love, was my anchor. I glanced at my phone, buzzing with messages from friends and even strangers who'd seen the viral clips of my speech. "You're my hero," one read. "Thank you for showing me I can start over," said another. Those words wrapped around me like a hug, a reminder that our stories, when shared, can change lives. My heart swelled, not just for the victory over Ryan's betrayal, but for the connection I'd found with Sarah, Mia, and now, with you. I walked to the window one last time, the Seattle skyline shimmering like a dream I was ready to chase. This wasn't the end, but a beginning, a life built on truth, love, and the unshakable belief in myself. So, take that step, wherever you are. Share your story, own your worth, and let the world see who you really are. I'm Emily Carter. And I'm rooting for you. Let's keep this journey going together, because the best is yet to come.